If you've been researching the Annapurna Circuit, you've probably seen people online claim to have completed the trek in as little as a few $100s, while others spend over $2,000. So who's right? Hey guys, and welcome back. We're Rachel and Eve, and we've been traveling full-time since November 2025. And on this channel, we share our adventures, experiences, and the lessons we've learned along the way. Now, if you're anything like me, and you've been researching the Annapurna Circuit, you've probably spent hours online trying to figure out exactly what it would cost. In this video, we're going to break budgeting down step by step so that you can make the most of your trek. Because the reality is, the cost depends entirely on the decisions that you make before and during the hike. And be sure to stick around until the end, where I help you make one of the biggest decisions about your trek that can completely change your Annapurna Circuit experience. Just a quick note, all of the estimated costs we're going to be talking about today are going to be in US dollar. Now let's go ahead and get started. Before you ever even lace up your hiking boots, there are some expenses to consider. First, flights. That's a big and obvious variable, is your actual international flight to get to Nepal. And since everyone is traveling from different parts of the world, I'm not going to include an airfare in today's budget. Instead, I'm going to focus on the cost you'll actually have once you arrive in Nepal. So that leads me to a Nepalese visa. If you want to enter Nepal, you're going to need a visa. As of May 2026, the visa prices were $30 for 15 days, $50 for 30 days, and $125 for 90 days. One tip, based on our experience, is that the online system is a little bit unreliable. So if for any reason you have trouble making your payment, don't panic. Once you arrive in Nepal at the airport, there's self-service kiosks and a desk where you can finish that visa application process. And there's even an ATM right there if you need cash. Next, accommodation in Kathmandu. Most trekkers spend 1 or 2 nights in Kathmandu before even heading to the mountains. And then after finishing the hike, they spend another night or two to rest and recuperate. Now, hotel prices vary quite a bit, depending on the season and your comfort level. I'd expect somewhere between $20 and $70 per night, and similar prices if you plan to stay in Pokhara, another common stop for trekkers. We stayed at the Shuvatara Suites and Spa in Thamel and paid approximately $45 per night. It was clean, comfortable, and within walking distance from everything else we needed. Just remember that prices often increase during peak trekking season. And then of course there's gear. Gear could be one of your smallest expenses or one of your biggest. If you already own quality hiking equipment, you're way ahead. If not, don't worry. Since we're traveling full-time, we couldn't pack a full set of cold weather hiking gear. So we picked up almost everything after arriving. We budgeted roughly $100 per person and had no problems staying within that range. That included things like trekking poles, hiking pants, extra layers, cold weather clothing, socks, and extra items, which I'll discuss next. I'll link the shop we used below. The owner was incredibly helpful, honest, and didn't pressure us into buying things we didn't need. And honestly, don't overbuy. There are hundreds of stores in Kathmandu, and even a few on the trail in places like Manang if you forget something. So my advice, make a checklist, buy only what you need, and stick to your budget. Let's talk trail extras. As I mentioned, some of our budget toward gear went to a few other items that made our trek so much more comfortable. And I'm talking things like sunscreen, chapstick, rehydration tablets, lotion, a quick dry towel, power bank. All those things were absolutely worth buying. One thing we definitely overdid, snacks. We bought way too many. Did we eat them all? Of course we did. But we definitely didn't need nearly as many as we packed. And then we have trekking permits. Permit costs can vary, but a good estimate is about $40. And while we're talking logistics, insurance is another big one. It's highly recommended and even required by some trekking companies to have travel insurance that covers high altitude trekking, and that includes helicopter evacuation. For us, because we're traveling full time, we have a travel insurance policy, but for a single policy to cover a trek, I've seen estimates ranging between $200 and $600. Now, let's talk about actually getting to the Annapurna Circuit. This is where your budget can really start separating depending on how you like to travel. So from Kathmandu, it's about an 8-hour journey depending on where you actually start the hike. The cheapest option is taking a local bus. That can cost as little as $10 US. You can also book a shared Jeep, which usually runs somewhere between $50 and $70. Or if you're looking for comfort or flexibility, you can also hire a private vehicle, and that cost can range from $150 to $200, depending on that destination. Just remember that those prices are one way, and that you'll also need transportation back. Many trekkers return by Jeep or bus from places like Muktanath or Jomson, while others choose to fly. Flights from Jomson to Pokhara are around $150 per person, and those flights are very weather dependent. Then, a second flight from Pokhara back to Kathmandu is approximately $90. One advantage of booking a guided trek is that transportation is usually included and arranged for you, so that's just one less thing to worry about. Now let's get to what I think is one of the biggest budgeting mistakes, and that's the daily expenses. Because none of them are really expensive on their own, but they can all add up. One of the most obvious daily expenses, accommodation. And tea houses, they're actually one of the more affordable parts of the trek. Tea houses usually cost somewhere between $5 and $15 per night. And in many places, they'll even discount or completely waive the room fee if you eat dinner and breakfast at the tea house. But note, tea houses become more expensive the higher you go. And then there's food. Gotta eat. Food follows a similar pattern to accommodation. Food becomes more expensive the higher up into the mountain you go. So maybe early on, meals can cost around $4 or $5. But by the time you're higher in the mountain, that same meal might cost closer to $10. Why is that? Well, because every bag of rice, every egg, bottle of Coke, it's got to be carried or transported into the mountains. So the higher you climb, the more expensive things can become. And then there's some hidden cost. Little expenses that maybe people aren't thinking about or talking about too much. Things like a hot shower, Wi-Fi, charging your electronics. Some tea houses will charge separately for each of those things, maybe $2 to $5. And so that doesn't sound expensive on its own, but if you need all three every day for a couple of weeks, that's definitely something you want to consider in your budget. And then there's other items like bottled waters, snacks, teas. Those things can add up too, as well as souvenirs. So all of these little costs are things that can quickly push someone over budget and things that you want to be mindful of as you head into your trek. And then there's the biggest decision of your trek. Do you really need a guide? The simple answer, no. We met plenty of people who completed the Annapurna Circuit independently without any problems. If you're comfortable planning transportation, booking tea houses, organizing permits, and making decisions on the fly, doing it independently is absolutely possible. For us though, the answer was an easy yes. Our guided trek included everything, and it cost us approximately $1,400 per person. Could we have done it cheaper on our own? Absolutely. But for us, it wasn't about having someone show us the trail. The trail is marked. It was about having someone remove the mental workload of planning and managing the hike. Our guide handled transportation, permits, tea house bookings, changes in plans, local recommendations, communication, and our porter carried our extra items, which helped us focus on the trek and the beauty of the mountain, rather than the weight on our backs. So instead of thinking about logistics, we just enjoyed the hike. And that was absolutely worth the extra cost for us. But if you're an experienced trekker who doesn't mind managing some logistics or wants to stay within a certain budget, then going independently can absolutely make sense. Honestly, neither answer is right or wrong. It simply depends on what kind of experience you want and the budget that you're working with. So, how much money should you realistically bring? Let's break it down. I'm going to break it down by solo trekking, hiring a guide, and a fully inclusive tour package so that you can make the best choice for your trek. So, if you're trekking independently, then you're going to need to account for visa cost, permits, transportation, and transportation will vary depending on your mode of transport, but for shared options like the bus or a shared Jeep, you can expect to spend somewhere between $20 and $140. You'll want to account for the daily trail budget, a good estimate for food and accommodations with some hidden extras would be approximately $25 to $40 per day. So, all of this together for a 12-day trek, you could expect to spend between $400 and $700. Now, let's talk about hiring a guide. If you're hiring a guide, you can still expect to pay for visas, permits, transportation to and from the trail, and those daily expenses. If you want to hire a guide, then you should expect to pay an additional $300 to $400 for a 12-day trek. You will also want to consider tipping for the service, which will bring your total budget to approximately $800 to $1,100. If you want to hire both a guide and a porter, then you'll have to account for the porter daily fee and the porter tips, which will bring the cost closer to $1,000 to about $1,300. The last category is the fully guided tour experience. You will still have to manage your visa cost, but these tours typically include permits, transportation to and from the trail, and that's often in the form of a private transfer and/or flights. Daily expenses like food, accommodation, often teas and coffees will all be included. The guide and the porter fee will also be included in the package, but you will need to account for tipping for these services. So, for a 12-day inclusive tour experience, you can expect to spend between $1,200 and $1,600. Keep in mind that several things are not included in these estimated budgets. So things like international flights, transfer to and from the airport, meals and activities off trail, city accommodation, gear, and insurance. Those are all costs that you want to consider when you're finalizing your budget. So, here's the bottom line. For a 12-day trek, if you're going solo, we'd recommend a budget between $500 and $700. If you're hiring a guide and a porter, that price is going to increase to between $800 and $1,100. And if you're doing a fully inclusive tour package, you can expect to spend between $1,200 and $1,600. For us, our total package came to $1,400 per person. Let me tell you what that included. It was actually a 17-day package that included 3 nights in Kathmandu and 1 night in Pokhara. It included a Kathmandu city tour, transportation to the trail via private car, permits, our porter and our guide, all accommodation and food on the trail, extras like Wi-Fi and hot showers, and return transportation via flight. On top of that $1,400, we tipped our guide and porter. They did a great job. We had a wonderful tour with them. So, would we do it the same way? Honestly, yes, we would. And not because we couldn't have done it ourselves, but because by choosing an all-inclusive package, we didn't have to manage any of those logistics. And we got to enjoy what we came to Nepal for: the mountains, the people, the villages, and one of the most incredible hikes we have ever done. Well, that's it. Hopefully this video helps you plan and budget for your own Annapurna Circuit experience. If you liked this video, let us know what you think in the comments. If you are planning an Annapurna trek, be sure to check out our series where we talk about tips and common mistakes. As always, if you want to follow along on our journey, subscribe, and be sure to check out our blog at riworldtravel.com for more travel inspiration and tips. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.